there was high-profile men coming to King's Cross and buying children. It was like going to a coffee shop and buying a cup of coffee, you know. They'd just come down and be able to purchase a kid. I went from this bubbly little boy to silent, literally silent. I was so afraid of getting backhanded, hit, slapped, punched or sexually abused that I just ceased being a person. I was just like this little shadow. You'd see little boys sitting in there and all these different men and people I used to see come to there, and the war, specifically the war, was some people that would blow your mind. You know, some of the most powerful people in our country. I'm talking about teachers, principals, lawyers, politicians. I saw him and just this anger come over me. I thought, I'm going to say something to this guy. And I walked up and I said, one day I'm going to tell the world what you did. And I just kept thinking, they're never going to get him. They're never going to get him. So what we want you to do is wear a wire. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? I'm not wearing a wire. But I did. I remember walking out that station and thought, no one's going to ever hurt me again. That's it. It's over. No person will ever touch me, control me, or hurt me again. Little did I know, I was literally walking into a predator's paradise. The place was littered with them.
Welcome back to part 2 of my chat with Glen Fisher. If you listened to part 1, you would have heard Glen talk about the horrific childhood he had experienced. If you thought Glen's life must have got better from there, you're in for a shock, because in part 2 he talks about it, and it certainly didn't. It got a lot worse. Addicted to heroin for 35 years, prison sentences, the betrayal by the only 2 people he trusted enough to love, and his attempts to take his own life, plus a whole lot more. But Glen also talks about how he turned his life around, how he got justice against his abusers, how he gave evidence at 4 court matters, giving evidence at 2 royal commissions, and how he is now giving back to society. Glen's story is as dark as it is inspirational. Have a listen, and I think it might just put in perspective how lucky the majority of us are. Glen Fisher.
How you going?
Welcome back.
Yeah,
part 2.
Yep.
I'm going to apologise, and I probably don't have to. You've told me it's all right to talk about things, but I'm taking into some dark places. So yeah I apologise up front. But I think, and I agree, or I believe you agree with it, that it's important to talk about the things that you've experienced, because there's a lot of people out there that wouldn't have the courage is probably not the right word, but for whatever reason don't feel comfortable in coming forward and talking about the type of things that you talk about.
There's a lot of stigma and shame around abuse, you know, and I know for myself, I used to think, how did I let somebody do that to me? You know, and that's probably what sits with a lot of people, you know, but I think, like, I wrote in my book, this isn't a me story, this is a we story. This is a story about a lot of children who went through this and were abused. I've just one that's lived to tell, you know. That's
the insidious part about child sexual abuse, isn't it? That leaves the victim so traumatised, and they're even blaming themselves. But that's part of the manipulation. They do that for the people that are preying on these kids, know that they can get away with things because of that's what they leave the kids with.
They come across like they're doing you a favour. You know, like, oh, you need money to get on, I can help you out, you know, just for this cost, you know, and you're hanging out in withdrawals, like, can you give me the money first? Yeah, okay. And, you know, you think they're doing you a favour, you know, and they're not, you know, and you've been programmed that way prior, you know.
I love the fact that you're talking about this, and it's almost like an avenging angel, you know, coming in, and these people that have been involved in this, they must have people like you talking. They'd be thinking, shit. When am I going to get that knock on the door, and when I'm going to be called into account?
I hope so.
Yeah, so do I. I have a lot of sleepless nights.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because the lives that they destroyed. Just before we take you back in the dark stuff, just to give you a sense, or give our listeners a sense of how far you're coming. I think it's in a day or so you're heading down to Canberra. By the time people listen to this podcast, you will have spoken on the steps of Parliament House down in Canberra. What's that about?
It's called Zero Suicide. A friend of mine, Paul, runs it every year, and he gets us to come down and speak. We lay out 2,525 shoes this year to represent every life lost to suicide. And I've been asked all over the country to speak at different events, and I'm meeting up with Malcolm Roberts on the day before. He wants me to go on a podcast with him as well, share my story, and then I'll be speaking at the front of Parliament with a lot of other creators, a lot of influencers, to try and show people we need to stop this in its tracks. We need a men's minister. That's what we're pushing for, is to get a men's minister to deal with men's mental health and situational distress.
Yeah. Talk on that a little bit more. Why you think specifically for men?
Well, because 8 out of every 9 that have died is a male.
Yeah.
That's the problem. The leading cause of death in our country between the ages of 15 and 35 is suicide. That's a catastrophe. The only thing that's measuring near it now is dementia. And that's only just a recent stat that I read the other day. But we're losing, like I said, somebody every 3 hours. Why this podcast has happened, we've lost someone.
Yeah, it's frightening, isn't it?
It's terrifying. And as a father, as a grandfather, that terrifies me. I'd hate my kids to think that that's an option.
Yeah.
And
it's not a simple fix, but to talk about things like that, I think helps. That there are people that have been in that lowest ebb that want to talk or can talk about it. There are places where people can talk about it.
And specifically with men, women are quite good at talking with each other about things that are going on. Us men, we've been like to swallow it and say nothing, and that's how we roll.
I'm laughing because I know what you're saying, and I just know. You hang out with a mate and they know more about their wife knows more about people's lives than your mate. What did you talk about? We just said good day. We talked about the
footy.
football. We
footy,
did this. We did. How you going? Good.
Yeah.
Like I dare say, we'd pass each other in the street. How you going? Good, mate. How you? Good.
Even if we're not.
That's the depth of it. So good on you for working in that space. In that space too. The one thing, and I know how sensitive you are to it because you've told me on a number of occasions, and that was we talked about the girl that you found in the cross, and you fell in love with her, and it was basically your first girlfriend, and world looked a little bit brighter in the dark world that you were living in because of her. Do you want to tell us about her? Is it okay if I use her name?
Linda
Kirby.
absolutely, yeah. Can I share something with the start of it?
Yeah.
That's just beautiful to start off with. So her family were going through her stuff just recently, about a year ago, and when they were going through their stuff, they found a photo, and on the back it said, Linda loves Glen Fisher. And they're like, who is this Glen Fisher? So they Google Glen Fisher, and they're like, everything comes up, and it's my book. They buy my book, they open up the book, and on the very first page it says, dedicated to Linda Marie Kirby. I've now been in touch with them. I have this relationship with them and other kids who have died in the Crosses family too.
Wow, I get a chill down my spine when you just told that. That's beautiful, isn't it?
It is beautiful, and I sat with them, and one of them just passed just in the last 2 weeks, but the other, I met the mum and the niece and the brother, and and they, all of the ones that reached out to me, I was so worried about sharing the story of other kids, and they said, no, Glenn, you've humanised my daughter. You've brought her to life.
Wow.
Yeah.
Tell us about Linda and tell us about your relationship.
Yeah, so we first met, as I said. We were side by side, like we were just two big kids, we were little kids, and we were running around. She was kind of like the leader of the girls, and I was kind of like the leader of the boys. And I wasn't the leader because I was tough, I was the leader because I didn't shut up. That's why I was the leader. Like that's kind of how we rolled, But she started. Some older boys came in from town hall in different areas, and she started using heroin. And so I ended up shaking up with this other girl. I'm a break dancer. I used to break dance on the street. I was quite good, actually.
We've never had a break dancer on iCatch.
Yeah, right. I did a break dance the other day on TikTok, and someone said, that's AI for sure. That's AI. And I was like, that's
a compliment. Good compliment.
Yeah,
that's a great compliment.
But what ends up happening is I go to South Australia to go into a dance competition. They reckon this group's the best dancers in Adelaide, and I know they're not, right? I'm a good dancer, and I know it. So I'm going up there to prove it. So I head off up to South Australia, and we go in this dance competition. I create a little group called the Megazoids. I had one, in Sydney we had a group called the Megazoids. Mega means many, Zoids means street people. Yep. But up there we made one called the Electrical Connection, right? And we practice all these routines to go in this competition. We win. We actually win the competition. As I'm coming out of the competition, I'm walking down the stairs. One of the kids from the refuge, John Chapman, who just also recently died, is at the bottom of the steps. And I'm walking down. I was, did you see us, bro? Did you see us? And he's looking really somber, and he goes, Linda's dead. Sorry. And I was like, what? And I grabbed him. I threw him against the wall, and John could have picked me up and tossed me, but he just, Glenn, I'm serious. Linda's dead. And fucking ripped my heart out, man. I just sat down on the spot, and I was like, are you fucking kidding me? What had happened is, for the heroin, two blokes had asked a young girl to find a girl a kid, you know, a 15-year-old. She just turned 16-year-old girl. She went with them. They gave her the heroin. She dropped. They didn't know what to do. They were caught, convicted, got 20 years jail. Then they went before Judge Eldon and on appeal got it dismissed altogether. It's because of her I've written my book. It's because of her I do everything I do today. But that's why I went up to that abuser. It was just, Linda just died. And I walked up and I was like, you, I'm gonna hold you responsible.
Oh, that's when you told him.
That's when I told him. Yeah, it was like I had to hitchhike back from South Australia. And what happened was I was doing dancing and I had nunchuckers on me. I had them down my legs, you know. We just carry them down there, and I got pulled over by the police in Goulburn. They arrested me. Back then, nunchuckers is the same as carrying a firearm. It's a Section 13. A knife is a Section 9 prohibited. Yeah. So I kept in the cells for 2 weeks while her funeral was on. So I missed her funeral. But I ended up hitchhiking back to the Cross. And sadly, Gary, that's where I actually become a heroin addict. You know, I was like, at that point I'd use speed, coke, ice, trips, pot, drink, but I'd never put a needle, you know, been into heroin.
You knew that was taking the next step?
I did. I wanted to know what it was. And the sad thing was that because of all my trauma, it was like my head never stopped. It was like I had all these flashbacks in my head and visions. And the sad reality for me was when I picked up heroin, it was like my body realigned. It was just like, that's the answer, which was a lie. Because people don't understand that you chase that for the rest of your life, trying to get that realignment. You spend more time in withdrawals and hanging out and chasing the dragon and money than you ever do actually stoned.
Just trying to get you back to feeling
that's
okay, and that's what you're chasing.
And in withdrawals, it was manifested. Those feelings of were exasperated. It was even worse. So I get all these flashbacks and trauma, and it was horrible. But I never coped with her. And she was the first. I mean, I watched many kids die. You know, another girl, Bam Bam. There's so many of them. Sharon Tracy, there's a lot.
And it's just such a waste of life, isn't it?
And especially her. She was so vivacious, bubbly. She was talented. She was smart. She was a leader. She was just everything beautiful, you know. And her life really touched me.
The two that were convicted, was it just the sentencing reduced, or
no, completely dismissed?
Right.
Yeah, I only found these out as an adult.
And we don't know what's gone on with the court matter, but when you're talking about Justice Yeldon...
Yeah, he's a pedophile.
That's been widely reported.
Yeah, it's a known fact.
Yeah.
He ended up taking his life at the Woods Royal Commission, suicided.
My understanding after the investigators spoke to him a couple of times, and then he ended up committing suicide following that. And that's scary, isn't it, that the person in a position of that power?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and not only that, I mean, he's a compromised judge. The police also knew that he was compromised, the ones that were corrupt in the Cross, so they were able to take advantage of that as well.
Well, I read somewhere that there were charges against him, or he was arrested and charges weren't laid or whatever, so there was an assumption that he was given a pass or let off.
Yeah, it's well known on the street that he was given a pass. And he's not alone there. There was a lot of them. Like I said, they used to hold it over them, you know, photos or, you know, whatever it was that they had on them. And it allowed, you know, like there was high-profile men coming to King's Cross and buying children. It was like going to a coffee shop and buying a cup of coffee, you know. They'd just come down and be able to purchase a kid.
What a disgusting world. Do you concern, and we can't mention names because you and I will end up in court, and I don't want to go back to court, and I don't think you want to go to court.
No, I'm done with court.
But do you feel at risk because you are speaking up?
I did for years. Yeah. I had a lot of fear around it. I had more fear around the people I loved than me, you know, putting them in any kind of danger. But I got in my head, I thought, I cannot not speak. They're all dead, Gary. One by one, I've watched them die. Yeah. And the last one just recently, Marlene, they're all dying of liver disease or suicide or alcoholism or addiction, overdoses. And I just thought, you know, each one of them used to reach out to me and say, I just love you, Glenn. You're so brave taking these guys to court. You know, we're proud of you. You're behind you. And I just thought, I have to talk. You know, I need people to know, people like Linda, Marlene, you know, Bam Bam existed, you know, my brother, you know, all these different people. You know, it's like, I have to speak. Yeah.
You got to some low points in your life, and you're addicted to heroin for a long time. And I think you stood on the edge quite a few times with just your heroin use, but you made some overt attempts to take your own life. What was a lead up to that?
So the first one was for 7 years I was using on the streets, dropping all the time. I had like 13 overdoses in a period of 2 years because I started taking pills. But I ended up meeting a woman, and we got engaged. Going to have a baby. She was pregnant. We just had a little baby, and and I loved this woman. I really did. And then I got kicked off the methadone program for violence, for fighting, and it's the second time I've been kicked off for violent stuff. And then when I stayed on the street for 2 weeks, and when I came back, my brother was at my house with my partner, and I was like, oh, hello, and I pick up the baby, and it's just all normal. Yeah. I end up finding that these two have been sleeping together. He ends up telling me, and at the moment I've just been kicked off 120 mils of methadone. I've got a heroin habit. I'm homeless. I've just lost my partner. The only three people I love in the world is my brother, my fiance, and my little girl. And I'm sitting outside of a church, and I don't know how I got myself to this point, but I'm sitting there listening to the music, and something about Christian music's always soothed me, Gary. I don't know why, it just does. Yeah. And I'm sitting there, and the music stops, and all of a sudden, in my head, just talking to me, and I'm rocking back and forth like this, and I'm saying, there's no fucking point. What's the fucking point? What is the point of this fucking world? Everybody's a piece of shit, And I just kept saying it over and over and over. And I walk into the church, and my intention was to get a cup of tea, that they've all got maybe this biscuits or something I can drink or eat. And I walk inside, and there's no one there, and there's this big cross there with a sheet with all someone's been spraying on something, like paint or something on it. And I look at it, and I actually get the sheet and I put it around my neck, and I start praying, I don't know if there's a God or not, but if you're there, hear my story, man. Yeah. And I start praying to God, and then I just step off. And as I go to step off, some man just comes straight through and grabs me and lifts me up and stopped the actual drop bit of me dropping. And he sat down with me, and he was a priest. And he started talking to me about God, and I was screaming at him, bro. And I'm like, don't tell me about fucking God, bro. And this God, I'm angry, I'm angry. And he gives me a poem. It's called Footprints. And I read that poem, and I just fucking broke down in tears, mate. It just made me cry. And I thought, because I believe there's something out there, a God, but I don't believe in religion or churches, because it just seems to be the catalyst for everything evil from what I grew up with, And but that was the first time. But what ends up happening is it turns into an armed robbery. I go into stayed the next day. I go to see him, and he said I stayed there the night, and the next morning he says to me, I said, I got to go, bro. I said, I'm a heroin addict, and I'm fucking in bad withdrawals. I've got to go. I tell him that.
So this is the dude that's
the priest.
The priest that saved you.
Yeah. And what happens is he says to me, what about I give you $50? Will that help? I said, yeah, absolutely. And as an addict, it's like, I'm better. I'm not, because I know, so it's subconscious, right? Yeah. And then suddenly he says to me, no, I can't do it. My religion, faith won't allow me to give you that money or whatever it is, And so just to clarify back, there was two men there. There was actually another man who stopped me from falling. It was the priest that came in and
he's the one that you
built the relationship with. Then what happens is I pick up a butter knife and I put it to my neck, and I hold it to my neck, and I said, you don't fucking get it, brah. I don't want to be here. And then I threw it on the ground. Yeah. Right, that's it. I just threw it on the ground. And he said, look, Glenn, let me drive you to the cross. And he drove me to the cross, and I had a bag of clothing with me. He gave me the $50, and he said, can I pray for you? And I said, okay. And then he went to touch me. I said, just don't touch me. You can pray for me, but please don't touch me. I don't like being touched. So he prays for me. He said, how about you leave your clothes with me, and you can come back the next day and get them, and we'll wash them. I said, all right, I'll wash them for you, and you can come back and get them. 2 weeks or so pass, and I'm passing through that area, and I knock on the door, and he goes, come in, welcome in. And so we go in and have a cup of coffee, and all of a sudden about 15, he goes, I've just got to go and do something, I'll come back. He's gone and rang the police. I didn't know this. And then 2 minutes later, the police turn up, knock, and they arrest me, and they charge me with demand money with menace, right? Then what happens is King's Cross police, so I end up getting put into jail for 11 months in MRC, but King's Cross police learn of it, and they change the charge and turn it to armed robbery.
Okay.
So robbery.
So breaking that down, demand money with menace was the first one.
Yeah.
So that's okay. Armed robbery takes it to another level.
A completely different level.
That you're threatening someone to rob them.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And so I end up getting Supreme Court bail to Odyssey House, and but I didn't make it. So what happens is pretty funny. I'm with my girl, the one that sat with my brother.
Yeah.
She's at the court, and as we're leaving, I said, I'll see you in 10 minutes at the station. She says, what are you talking about? They're escorting you out to Odyssey House. I said, I'll see you at the station in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
We get in the bus, all of these guys that have been Supreme Court bail out to Odyssey House, and I'm sitting near a window, and I'm a skinny little heroin addict, and it's about that much space, to get out this window, and I look at the guy, and it's not like now this over there, and I'm pointing all this stuff, so everyone's sort of engrossed in whatever it was I pointed to, and then I slip out the window, gone. I'm at the station, and the sad part to this story is I went up to her and I said, you got any money? She goes, yeah. She says, I'll give you $50, or you can come with me and my daughter. Yeah. I looked at her and I thought, you betrayed me, mate. Just give me the 50. And I still kind of, I don't now because I've had a beautiful, after that, I've moved on. But for that point in time, I felt sad. But I end up escaping and staying on the streets for ages, using and stuff until I eventually get caught. So the police used to see me, right? I remember walking down the main street of the Cross and they're walking up eating an ice cream and they look up and they see me and I run towards them and I run down through this arcade and down Chapman Steps in the Cross and they're chasing after me and I'm fast and they get to the top of the steps and I'm like, come on. And I'm playing this game with them for about a week. Every time they see me, they're chasing me. They can't get near me.
You're trying to get them fitter.
Yeah. I'm trying to help out, bro. But then what happens is one day I score and I go to this place and so the day before I'm having a shot on a staircase and all of a sudden someone must have come up from behind and hit me with a bottle because I'm laid out on the ground with blood coming out of my head. I think someone didn't like me using in the area so they just come up from behind and gone whack with a big Goonie bottle. The next day I go back to the same spot but a different little part of it, right, where no one can see me and I'm shooting up but you can't get out of where I'm at. Yeah. Suddenly those 3 detectives walk in and they're like, g'day Glenn. I was like, oh, fuck. Okay, well, you got me. Okay. I still had the needle in my arm as they're doing it. I went, zhoosh. I pushed it in. I thought, well, at least I'm going to have my whack before I go. You know what, actually, I'd say they saved my life. They wouldn't like the irony of that. But putting me in jail,
wasn't their intent.
That was not their intent at all. They wanted to silence me, get me off the street. Yeah. But me going to jail, it's sad to say this, but I actually enjoyed being in jail.
I've read and about you. That's your view on it. Talk us through it.
Well, for the 7 years prior to that, I'd slept in bloody parks in the pouring rain. I'd slept in back alleys. I'd been using every day. I was always looking over my shoulder for somebody I've robbed, ripped off, or the police. I was just tired. By the time I got to jail, I had 3 meals a day. I had a roof over my head. I had 100 mates because I wasn't that tough guy in jail. I just got on with everyone. I was the friendly guy. Everyone just got on with me.
Okay, so you weren't staking your piece of ground in prison.
That's right. Yeah, no, I didn't. That wasn't my role.
And people didn't see you as a threat.
No. Everyone called me Stretch. I was playing football one day and someone says, "Oh, you, long fella, big fella, stretchy fella, give me the ball." And then from that day, everyone called me Stretch. It was just Stretch, and it's like. But they always said, "Oh, here comes fucking Stretch again with the bluey." I used to run all the competitions in jail, touch football, whatever it was, you know. So that's how they knew me. I got my school certificate in jail. So one of the things that I did was I thought, right, this is my chance to learn to read and write. So I bought all these books. But the only books I could get was I got the Bible, a book called 70 times 7, and The Cross and the Switchblade. So they're the 3 books that I read to try and get more articulate and to learn words. Yeah. Then I started to do my CGE, General Certificate of Education, which is equivalency to school certificate, which I did. Yeah. And I got all these other things. I did computer courses, front-end loader, first aid. I spent my whole time in prison learning.
That's when the system works, isn't it? And
it is.
I suppose you're unique in that your start to life was so shit that prison looked
was a better option.
Luxury. How long's this been going on?
Yeah, that's right.
But that is the system working. It doesn't work for everyone, but someone that's in there and credit to you, credit to the system for allowing you to do it. But you've taken that opportunity.
But it also taught me anger. And hate. It also taught me that respect equals violence, that if someone's disrespectful to me, that's met with violence. Okay. So there's good and the bad. And I saw a lot of people come in to jail that story's not like mine. They come in and they do these ones and they try and bounce around like a tough guy and that gets sorted really fast. And
How long did you do?
So I did 11 months on remand and then 2 years, 8 months was my sentence. So I did 2 years, 8 months.
And that's when you literally, we haven't even talked about your education, but you had enough going on in your life, early schooling. Did you do much schooling? Or?
No. So I did, the only years I can remember, I was bounced around so much that only years 4, 5 and 6 and 7 I did. I did half a year 7 in a high school in Erina, and then I got put into Darrick halfway through that. I started year 8, and then I ran away about 3 weeks into it. Somebody punched my brother, and I attacked him in the principal's office. I literally attacked him in the principal's office, and so I ran away that time as well, and I was institutionalised again. But I didn't do much schooling at all. And even when I was there, I was so messed up with my trauma and the kids bullying. And I've actually joined one of the pages to the school I went to, and I've had so many people reach out to me and said, "Oh, Glenn, if we'd had only known," it hurts me saying it because it felt such a nice, needed moment. And I said to them, "Look, you could never have known what was going on in my life. You just couldn't." But they knew I lived in the oldest house, that I always smelt like urine. So I wet the bed really bad. We didn't have hot water as a kid. We had an urn, and we didn't have a public toilet, proper toilet. We had one that was emptied back then. And so everyone sort of knew me as the stinky, poor kid, And
it's cruel, isn't it?
It is cruel, but kids don't know,
and it's I can see why you get emotional but the kids that probably gave you a hard time at school are reaching out and apologising now.
Yeah, and I respect that. Someone says, Glenn, I should have done better, and I wished I did. And there was a couple that kind of knew they didn't know the sexual side of it, but they knew that I was being subjected to extreme violence. It was visible. I had one story I have as a kid is I had to get up to go to school one day, and I'm sitting at the bus stop, my eyes like black, really bad. And I get on the bus, and the bus driver said, "What happened to you?" I said, "I hit my head on the side of the corner of the door." He said, "You do that a lot." Anyway, he drives about 100 metres and stops at the front of my dad's house. And then he walks up to the front door, and I couldn't hear it. And this is a guy's about 70 years old, named Clary, right? Bang, bang, bang. And you could see him. He's so animated. And I'm sitting in the bus like, "Oh, what's going on?" Because my dad teaches karate. He's a martial, he's a violent man. And, but he gets back in the bus and he goes, "He better not be doing that again. I'll be knocking on the door every day." And he's talking all the way to school. And it's the only time in my life anyone stood up for me as a kid. And and then I ran away. I didn't come home.
But he stood up for you, but you're in the shit now. But I can see the smile on your face come in when you're talking about that, because you wouldn't have had anyone fighting you.
No, that's right. And that's the thing that I think that really strikes me with my story is I didn't know where to turn, and the system that was supposed to protect me failed me and repeatedly failed me. And it's the systemic failures of my story are so many.
When you talk about the docs file and all that, and 22 times you've been taken from your home by the time you're 7 or something
that's right.
ridiculous. Hello, there's a pattern forming there. I don't know, the breakdown of the system.
And you add that with my medical records of the amount of times that I present to Mount Druitt Hospital, North Sydney Hospital, all these different hospitals, I got stitches in my ankles, stitches in my fingers, I got scars all over me, mate.
When you were taken to the hospital with your carpet burns and your fingers,
no one did nothing.
Cut off, and the mum's obviously irrational, screaming at the doctor, that would have been their moments that could have, if someone stepped in, that's when the difference could have been made. Yeah,
there's so many moments that I look back when I read through my files where I think that so many people could have done something and nobody did nothing. And that angers me more than the people who hurt me, because I'll never be that guy, Gary, even if it hurts or costs me my life. If I see someone hurting a child, bro, I can tell you right now I'm stepping in. And I feel every person should.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
If we can't protect, it's a mark of society if we can't protect the vulnerable, and the most vulnerable are kids.
That's right. Absolutely.
Okay, so prison, you got an education, or you learnt to read, you started to appreciate the finer things, you got some skills.
Yep.
When you left prison, did you have a game plan of where your life was going to
So when I got out, they wanted me to get a job and a place to live. I don't even have a family, mate. How am I going to do that? So I met some Christians, and they gave me a job as a carpenter, like apprentice carpentry, and I lived with them. But when I got out, the woman tried to come onto me. She was like 72-year-old. She walked up behind me one day when I just come out of the gym. She got her hands all over me. I'm like, "Fuck this, man! I'm out of here."
It's a Christian lady.
Christian lady, yeah.
It's very unchristian.
Yeah, it was very unchristian.
But
the problem was that my addiction, Gary, was doing push-ups for me, waiting outside. Although I never used entire time I was in prison.
Run that through me. Again, explain that one. I like the same. But
The
just
expression,
explain,
yes. Well, what I mean is that I hadn't been treated, and that's the part of our system that does fail us.
Yeah.
That we put people into a time warp, and they're still a heroin addict.
Yeah.
I'm a long believer that we should move away from punitive and move towards rehabilitation when it comes to drug-related offences.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to offences against children, women, murder, those sort of things, that's a different story,
Yeah.
bro. But when we're talking about people who are recidivists, keep going back and back again because of drug addiction, they come in, they clean, they get themselves all good, then as soon as they walk out the door, bang, they use again, and many of them drop or die or homeless.
Well, you talk like when you're released from prison, want to get you a job, want you to do this, find a home and all that. You don't get much when you're released from prison. You haven't got a CV that's going to get you a job. So there is, I think, a fair enough thing, a responsibility, or it just makes sense that when you're released from prison, there's a pathway that you can.
Absolutely. I think that one of the things that I talk about often is I would like to see like levels. So when you go into prison, I could say to you, listen, mate, you can do your 4 years jail in jail, or you can do 4 levels. Level 1 is we do anger management, Narcotics Anonymous. We learn, educations, and we work our way through all these things. So by the time someone comes out, they're better equipped to live a life. I mean, someone like me, that would have been ideal. If someone had taught me about my addiction, someone taught me a little bit about my trauma, my anger management, those kind of things, given me an education, and then at the end you do a bit of job release and get you an actual place and set you up, I think that would have been a lot better than me trying to fend for myself. And that's what it basically is.
Well, the high rate of recidivism, not just in New South Wales, but across the country, speaks of the fact that we haven't quite got it right. But giving something to work towards. And I know when I was doing the series Breaking Badness, there was a lot of people I saw in jail that were on lengthy sentences. And you could see if I had the authority, and I'm not a bleeding heart or a softie, I would sign the paperwork to let them out. They had clearly learnt their lesson, and they wanted to get back out and contribute to society. And but we're going to keep them in there for another extended period of time, and who knows what they're going to be when they get out.
I think what the viewer needs to understand, or Australia needs to understand, is that there's a difference between a sick person who needs to be made well as opposed to a bad person who needs to be made good. And I think when it comes to a sick person needing to be made well, i.e. a heroin addict or in addiction, if we look at those sort of programs away from punitive and move towards rehabilitation, I think that could work. Whereas with the bad people, I think there's some grubs, bro. They need to be in prison.
I think, and put it in perspective, like in prison and talk in prison, a large percentage of the prisoners go, that prick should never be released.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like they know bad people. But
it's a scary place, jail.
It's the smaller percentage of the people that are in prison are the ones that can't turn their life around. It's the Ken Marslew said it, and I've said it a lot on the podcast, but I think it's a good way of looking at it. You probably got 30% that have made the decision they're going to be criminals. They're going to try and score $1, and the price they pay, they're going to get the sentence. That might be 20, 30%. Yeah. Then you got the 60% probably sitting there that have made a mistake. They're not bad people. It might have been circumstances like yourself, and they've found themselves in prisons. They're the ones that you can change, and then the 10 or 15%, the real bad bastards, well, we can't help them.
And the way the system's set up now is that those 60% that are good to survive end up doing some of the most heinous things in prison. And I've seen that happen. I've seen good men come to prison and join into groups, and the next minute they're shivving people or doing all sorts of stuff just to survive.
And that's the thing, isn't it?
And it's sad.
Survival.
Yeah, that's right. It changes men. I know the first time I got out of prison, you might have read in my book, I got into a punch-on. And because I'd been taught respect equals violence, someone wouldn't shake my hand. Yeah. And the next minute I'm punching, I literally, he's behind the door and I'm kicking the door in. And the barman come over and said, mate, you got a choice here. You can get in a taxi and go home, or I can ring the police and you go back to jail. Where are you going? Yeah. And I took the option to go home.
I've heard a lot of people say that when they get out of prison, because they're so used to walking around bridged up, ready to go at the moment's notice, and then the gates to the prison are open, they're walking down the street and someone disrespects you by maybe accidentally bumping in or not shaking your hand, and you're so conditioned that you've got to react, and it's on again.
I made a video just recently about just this. That goes right, the one I was telling you about.
Yeah.
We're walking together and we bump into each other and we're both like, you want to have a crack? You know, we do this full-on thing and then we go, and we go backwards and then we do it again. And like, I'm so sorry, bro. And he's so sorry. One of the things I teach a lot of people to do now is I call it monkey mentality. Two men walk down the street and they eyeball each other. Yeah. And they just keep doing it until someone says, what? And it starts. When someone does that to me, I smile and I go, hi, mate. And 99% of the time, they smile straight back. Because what I've done is I said, you're safe, I'm safe. Yeah. Nothing to fear here, bro. And then we carry on, you know.
Well, you can diffuse. It's interesting. You can diffuse situations. I speak to young fellas and they go, well, you know, sometimes you got to punch on, sometimes you got to do this. And I use, you use the example of, bumping into each other. At the bar, if someone's, and we've all been there, someone's taken a dislike, had too much to drink or whatever, and looking at you, and they got the shits with you. Yeah. For whatever the reason is. And they might look at you and, what are you looking at, mate? Yeah. And I give people this tool. If you said that to me, I'd go, oh, sorry, mate, I'm just having a bad day. And you can walk away from it. You can diffuse it.
Yeah, absolutely.
We know we can, but it's that instinct we have. Fuck this! I'm going to escalate it and take it up. But you can walk away from the situations, can't you?
Absolutely. I work on the streets, and I've had people scream in my face and yell at me and all sorts of stuff. And now I'm able to. One of the things I can do now is is discernment the right word? I sort of look at them and I think, what actually is going on for you? Yeah. Like, I can see the facade, but what's actually going on underneath? And more often than not, it's something trauma. It's a defense mechanism because they're actually afraid. And so I just sort of step back and I just continually being kind. And there's been times, Gary, where I've had someone in my face and I'm like, and then I've had to walk away and come back and say, hey, and like come from another angle.
Well, you can control. Like, how many times have you looked back and gone, and it mightn't get physical, it might get physical, but you look back and go, I could have handled that a little bit differently.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, and so if you can stop and think before you react.
Respond, don't react.
Yeah, but that's the thing when the prisons are set up that you have got to be ready to go at the moment's notice and respects everything. And I can understand why blokes coming out of there are just and it's not just about the bloke that's fucked up again and ends up back in prison. There's more victims then. Someone's been hurt.
I always say to people, don't stand tall, just stand up. Yeah. Which means you don't walk around doing this. Yeah. But if someone puts it on you, you go straight back. And it's not about winning or losing. It's about face. Yeah. That's all it's about, and respect. Yeah. But back then I loved being in it. When it was time to get out, I was afraid to get out. But I couldn't live that world now.
Talk us through that, because that's interesting.
Well, so for the last 3 months, they come up, your time's wearing down. I'm now at a farm in Oberon. I've got a job. I'm working in education. Everyone's my mate. I play football, chess every day.
Got a bed. Everyone knows you.
Everyone knows me. I've got my own slot, It's like I'm in my own room, and but then suddenly I'm getting out. I remember feeling like for 3 months, like I ran a marathon. Did you read that in the book? I came first. I actually ran a marathon. Like I just loved being in there. Yeah. But when I got out, it was time to getting closer and closer to get out. I was getting this really bad anxiety. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. How am I going to do this? Like, I've never, everything in my life's been violence and all this stuff. I don't know how to survive in the world. I've never really maintained work or any of those things. I don't know what that looks like, and that because of that, it didn't take long for me to find myself back into that scene. Yeah. It was only because in 1996 I met someone and we'd had a little boy that the Woodrow Commission knocked on my door, and you know what they did? Like, I know they didn't mean it, but they still did it. I was sitting in my lounge room with my partner at the time, and bang, bang, bang on the door. King's Cross Police. Like, straight away my heart stopped, right? Because it's King's Cross straight away. I opened up and there's 2 women and a man there dressed in black, all in black clothing. Hi, we're from the Woodrow Commission. You've been identified by multiple people as a victim of sex crimes in your time in the Cross, in front of my partner. Yeah. Right? Yeah. In front of my partner. It could have been handled a lot differently. Yeah. And because I'd never told that part of my story to my partner. Yeah. And so that was the first thing. I wasn't quite ready when they came forward. Yeah. And but I put 2 men away through that case.
And I suppose you wouldn't have been trusting too.
I didn't. King's Cross Police, that in itself was an alarm bell for me, you know. And what's this Woodrow Commission you speak of, And I tell them and stuff, and I gave some stuff away, but not really all the, everything. It wasn't until the next Royal Commission into institutional abuse where they took my full story.
You put 2 people away?
Yeah, so in the Woodrow Commission, I put away a guy named Paul Chetwynd Jones. He was a counsellor at the Refuge, and a guy named Ken Fogarty, he was the head of O'Brien Glass, or I worked for O'Brien Glass, sorry, and used to sit outside the park all the day. He's the one that raped me that time I was telling you about, that one that was quite violent.
And was that just by providing a statement, or did you do...
Well, so a lot of other people had come forward as well on those particular two, including someone close to me, and so I spoke up as well, and I went to court against them both, gave evidence. In the first case against Paul Chapman-Jones, when we were at court, they broke for lunch, and I was sitting down eating my lunch, and I looked up at the table, and he's come up, like literally approached me in the interim, and he's gone, "Hi, Glenn." He said, "Look, I'm really sorry for what I did to you when you were a little boy," and he mentioned another victim, and he went back to court and pled guilty, but he was charged by multiple charges. He got 18 months, right? 18-month sentence. Then the other one, he pled not guilty and fought it all the way through, got found guilty. He also got 18 months. And I was like, at the end of that, mate, I'd just gone through all this going around the drive-arounds, the hearings, the whole thing, because the problem with my cases was I was subjected to the time governing abuse, which meant that I was subjected to the laws of when my abuse occurred. Right. Which meant I had to be at every hearing, you had to be at every fucking thing. And it was hard, man.
How did you find that? And were you still using heroin at that stage?
I was. So I'd been clean. And then what happened was, because I was living in Lithgow, I had to catch the train every day to the Downing Centre. Right. And so I was making a detour by the Cross, getting on, and then I was sitting in court like this. Like every day, like on the Nari Cod, just smashed, because I couldn't process it, man. It was the way that the solicitors for them would treat me, that it's like it's changed now. But back then they could say just about anything they wanted to, and like they trying to make it all my fault. And I kept saying,
how long have you been using heroin for? You just
that's right.
Kid, blah, blah,
you
blah.
went to jail for armed robbery, didn't you? And and like, are you gay? Did you get an erection? Oh, well, if you got an erection, you must have enjoyed it. Like the things that they say to you.
Is that how low they say?
Literally what they said to me. Did you get aroused? Did you get an erection? Did you like it? You went to Paul twice. So therefore, and it's just fucking...
So they can put that spin on it and balance out with the fact that you're a kid at the time and being taken,
I don't want to give credit to a pedophile, but I will say that Paul Jones noticed what was happening in the court, and I could see he was distressed by my distress, strangely enough, and he did, like I said, come up and apologise to me, and he's the only one that has, and I do believe there was a genuine remorse in that man, but he still did what he did, right? So that he apologised, and that meant something to me. But the other one was quite coarse, and I've actually had people reach out to me at different stages about him, like that are friends of his. Like same with Simon. He works in the privacy sector. I had all these people saying you cannot speak online and talk about him until he's been convicted. But then I also had someone else that reached in the privacy sector and said, "Glenn, I just want you to know that we're not all that work in that area like that." And I said, but the three guys that were really giving me a hard time on Twitter, messaging me, the minute he got convicted, block. All three of them, block. Because I was so ready to go, well, now what?
What now? How did it feel facing him down in court?
Well, with Simon was the biggest one.
Tell us about that, because that was a longer process.
Long process. So in 2016, they put out a red notice for Simon Davies, but I named him in the Woodrow Commission in '96. I named him in my statement in 2012, and in the Royal Commission institutional abuse. They allowed him to leave the country, even though multiple people had spoken about him as the primary abuser. And he ends up going to London, and then he catches wind that this warrant's come out, right? So he flees to the Netherlands. So he's learned that if you go to certain places in Europe, that they have statute of limitations, and that you can use the statute of limitation laws to negate crimes in this country, which is freaking insane.
It should be. You would think it would relate to the country where the offence committed.
Absolutely. So what happens is there's 4 people who have made charges against Simon Davies, and 18 charges against him. By the time he leaves the Netherlands, 2 of those victims have no longer got charges against him. I had 13 against him, turned into 3. But I'll never forget the police. This is where, for me, police change. Right? The sex crime squad from Parramatta, Nick Sprouse, I'll say his name because he's a beautiful man. He used to ring me every day Hey, I play rugby league super coach. You know what that is? Fantasy sport. I run podcasts for it, right? He'd ring me up and goes, "Oh, Glenn, I'm doing my football side. You know, who do you reckon I should pick?" And we just talk for an hour about footy or BBL, right? Yeah. But what he was doing was building a rapport. He was building a trust. And he said to me one day, he says, "Glenn, I promise you, I know it's taking nearly a decade." He says, "But I will fucking get him." And then, of course, COVID come in. That made it even more difficult. And I'll never forget that, oh, man, it's going to upset me again. He rang me from the airport from the Netherlands and he goes, "Hey, Glenn, how you doing?" I said, "Good, mate." He goes, "Listen, I just want to warn you that all over the news tonight, Simon Davies been arrested. We got him." You know, and I just remember, Gary, I sat on a lounge with so bad depression after all them court cases. I didn't move. I wasn't showering. I wasn't eating. I just sat there. I didn't know how to survive. I was literally on methadone, but I wasn't using drugs. I didn't know where to fit in, and I just kept thinking, they're never going to get him. They're never going to get him. And finally, the time that he rang me up and he said, "Glenn, I've got him," I felt like I was able to breathe again. But then when I went to court, the coward wouldn't come to court. He wanted to do it on the screen and he would not look across. But he got up at the end and he made this big letter trying to, you know, "I'm so sorry I let you down as a leader." And Dimity Clancy come up to me and she said, "Glenn, I can't remember the exact words, but it's just like, you're one of the most bravest people I've ever seen speak." You know, she said, "You are so articulate," and she said, "You are so better than that man." And I really appreciate those words at that minute from Dimity and Deb Knight. They're just some really lovely people out there.
Yeah, well, I think people do understand, and I know both the people you just mentioned, and they understand what you've been through. We read it, we hear about it in the paper, but unless you sit down and actually speak to someone and have a full appreciation of what they've been through, it just sort of gets lost in the news headlines, doesn't it?
Do you know when I told my story to the police, I remember them, the two police I'm talking about, they got their arms folded like this and they're listening to my story.
Sorry, I'm sitting there.
No, but they're sort of listening, and you could see that they were like, "This is a good story, bro, it's a lot." You know, it doesn't make, and your mum tried to cut your fingers off, okay, and and this happened and that, okay. You could see it. They went away, 6 weeks, they were gone, right? And I thought, well, that's that then. Then they turned back and it was almost like they were excited. Those, Glenn, we've been all around the country, we've spoken to so many kids from the cross and every single one parroted what you said. So what we want you to do is wear a wire. And I was like, "Are you fucking kidding me? I'm not wearing a wire." You know, but I did. And I'm glad I did, because I got him. You know, that's the other one, Grant Morris. So I ended up getting him as well.
You went and wore a wire and met with him?
Yeah, it was crazy. So they asked me first.
How'd you feel? That's a lot of pressure.
I was scared. I know scared's the right word. It was like everything that had been taught to me that as growing up was that still that crim side of me.
That's what I'm half laughing, and you got to see some light in some areas.
Yeah, that's right.
I just know crim, wear a wire.
Yeah,
fuck that.
I'm a snitch, you know. And then that's when the police said to me, like, it's a different rule. And so many people said it to me online as well.
100%.
It's a different rule when it comes to those who abuse children, Glenn. And that's when I had that conversation with him about, you know, saying that everyone thereafter abuses. And the funny thing was, I put this wire on, right, and he had to drop his car off somewhere, so they knew he was going to walk a path, right? But as I came out to where I'm coming up this way and going to walk down that way, there's all roadwork in between. So I think, oh, fuck, I've got to rush past the roadwork so that they can hear. So I did. I thought it. So I got past all the roadwork so that I met him at the corner. And I walked past and I sort of tapped him like that as I kept walking past. He went, "Glenn, is that little Glenn?" And I'm like, "Oh, hi, Gran, how are you?" You know, trying to be nice and stuff. And they gave me a phone as well. So for a specific phone. I gave him the phone number. He didn't contact me for 2 weeks. Then one night he rang me up drunk and just bang, he just blurted. And as soon as they hung up, I got a call straight from the police. And this was late at night. "Glenn, we got him." And they said, "Can you organise a rendezvous?" So what they did was they organised it so that I introduced him to a pedophile, he thought was a pedophile, and this pedophile had a boy that was with his parents, and we needed to get him back from his parents. You know? And so when I introduced Grant to this pedophile, he walks in first and he slides a photo across the right, and I open it up, there's two naked boys on their stomach at the refuge, right? And as soon as I grabbed it, I slid it to the detective. Then I realised what I was doing, and I slid it straight back and just folded up and sat there. And that's when he said that thing. He said he didn't. It's like I wasn't even there. He was so engrossed with this guy he thought was a pedophile. They're just interacting, and he's going, and we targeted prepubescent kids that come from broken homes, and this is how we went about it. And he's given them the game plan. And I was just sitting there thinking. And the police said to me later on, like, I walked out. I needed a cigarette. I needed to because I was angry at that statement.
I can imagine.
But they rang me straight away. Are you okay? You know, they were like I said, I saw a different face. And he said to me, Glenn, I don't see myself as like a copper. He said, I see myself as an investigator, investigating, child crime. But can I just say this? What a fucking cunt of a job. Sorry to swear, but imagine being in that position, having to watch videos or hear the replays of those stories over and over, then go home to your children. How do you do that?
Look, it's a very hard area of criminal investigation, and sadly, and I think we're recognising it more now, but they're always under-resourced, relatively junior sometimes. You've got some of the more experienced ones that can stay on, but quite often inexperienced police officers and doing that. And people say give kudos to investigating homicides. Unless you're after a serial killer or gangland, the crimes happen. You're trying to find the person that's done it, which there's pressure there. But with child sex abuse, if you don't catch this prick, other kids are going to be hurt.
Yeah, it's a lot of responsibility.
It is a lot of responsibility. And I think, it's great that you're talking some up, because I would imagine your starting point is you don't like cops from what you've experienced in the early years. So for you to talk it up, and I get the sense you see the cops that you're talking about, the good ones, they actually cared. Yeah, and what a difference that makes too, doesn't it?
I think one thing that I've learned is that there's good people and there's bad people, and that's in every sector of wherever anything flows, whether it be in the tax department or in the police department or in crim world, I mean, even in the crim world, there's good people and there's fucking people who are just really bad, inherently bad people. There's a difference. And I have seen a different face to policing, and I appreciate the way that they were so gentle through it, because I was really struggling, and I really was. And I almost suicided again. Like, I guess I should tell you that. So I, twice. So the first time was I took a heap. I went to a heroin dealer and I said, how much you got? He said, I got $300 worth. I said, I want the lot. I said, I'm out of here. I literally told him I'm going to kill myself. And I walked up to this church. I took the whole lot, stood up, nothing. Walked down the main street of Lithgow, walked into a pub, got a glass of water, went bang, and just hit the deck. So luckily I was in a safe place to be hit.
Well, that says something about the dealer too, doesn't it? You're telling him, I'm out of here. Well, that's not good, mate. You probably shouldn't do that, but here.
I won't say his name, but the irony is he actually overdosed about a year later himself, which is sad. But, I guess he saw it from that's money to his own habit. He's didn't see past his own addiction.
That's the way. Look, he's dealing with his own demons. Yeah.
But and then there was a third time, and the last one is a pretty. I went to rehab. But before I went to rehab, what happened was I'd been speeding on the gas for about a week, and I'm fucking in another world. And I just sat there again, and I got that thought process. I just don't want to be here. And I just kept looking around, thinking around. I thought, there is nothing in this world, and there was, but I didn't realise, that I want to be here for. So I went down to the cliff of Katoomba, right? And I'm scared to death of heights, right? But I stand back from this cliff, and I'm actually getting my courage, and I'm going to run, and I'm going to jump. Where I was actually going to jump was actually a fence, and then there's another drop down, but I didn't know that. But all of a sudden, as I'm about to go, I hear a voice, and this guy says, hey, bro. And I look over, and he goes, you know that people don't always die when they go over there, right? And I'm like, what? He goes, sometimes they land at the bottom in all broken pieces and they've got to take hours to get them out.
It was smart fella. That makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I was like, fuck, my mind's already convoluted from 7 days of not sleeping pretty much, you know what I mean? I'm like, and I thought that'd be fucking my luck. I'll land on a tree and fucking break everything on the way down and sit at the bottom, you know, and I thought, fuck it. And then the funniest part of the story, right, was I thought that he rang the police. So on the way back, every light, everything, I'm ducking in under cars all the way home doing these ones.
You're getting your breakdancing working.
Yeah, getting my breakdancing working. And then what happened was the next morning, a rehab rang me and said, you've got a space in Karolika in Canberra, which was the start of the change in my life. But while I was in Canberra in rehab, I had cancer. I didn't know. I had thyroid cancer and I had 2 melanomas on my back as well.
You thought you were just getting super fit, and look at me, I'm stripped down, lean, mean.
I thought I was buff, bro. And they called me into the office one day and they said, mate, can you stand on the scales, mate? And she said, you're 6'2" and you weigh 66 kilos. Yeah. I said, okay. He said, I think something's not right here. They took me in. There's only 2 types of actual cancer. It's called atypical pattern and follicular and papilla. I had them both. I had 5 nodules and that was raging. I was very unwell. And I also had hepatitis C, and I had 2 melanomas on my back.
Jesus.
So they had to, and you can't treat thyroid and liver together. So they had to take a risk. They did that, did my radiation, all that treatment. Then they put me through a new trial for Hep C, got rid of that, and they cut the 2 things out of my back as well. So
you went through the full thing.
Full thing, yeah.
And okay, and you're still smiling.
I'm still smiling.
There's a quote I meant to say it in the first part of the what do we call this podcast? That I like it, and I'm not sure if you invented it. You probably didn't, but I've heard you use it. Is that don't let the past rob you of your future.
Yeah, that's
right.
And
that's a really I highlighted that because it's a really powerful thing to say, because so many people have you've had all these kicks in the guts.
Yeah,
and,
that's right.
Like just when you think you're getting through, getting your shit together, cancer comes into play.
Yeah, that's right.
Another one, but you're still standing.
Yeah.
And you're now doing some good stuff.
Yeah, well, that's right. It started off on TikTok. My daughter asked me to do a dance on TikTok. And she said, will you do a dance with me, Dad? No, this time I'm overweight. I haven't showered in probably weeks. Like, being honest, not eating properly. I'm really not well. And she says, will you do a dance with me on TikTok, Dad? So I said, my money don't talk to jiggle jiggle. So my job was to jiggle jiggle, and then do a bit of my rap dancing, And then anyway, she's challenged me almost like, you're an old man, mate. No one's going to watch you on TikTok. It's like, oh, okay, well, challenge accepted. So I went on and I read the back of my book. Yeah. It got to about 30,000 views and about 1,000 followers in like about 24 hours.
Jesus, you got some street credibility with your daughter then.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, she thinks I'm famous now. She's got about 100, it's a lot more.
Yeah.
But she's, but anyway, that's how it started out. And then what actually happened was I shared a couple of parts of my journey on TikTok and stuff, and people started reaching out to me. And they were people from the past, and they were like, bro, you need to speak, you're articulate, you speak honestly, you're not afraid, because all of us are, and for different various reasons, whether it be family related, there's various
a whole
reasons,
range of reasons.
And it just grew into something, and then that guy's right I was telling you about, he's an incredible story of his own. He's big drug deal, all this stuff. He invited me to Melbourne, and he sat me down. He said, "Bro, you got a hell of a story." And he said, "You can really change hearts and souls. If you just get your shit together." But I was still on Suboxetone at the time, and I thought, "Fuck this, I'm going to get off it." And then when I was coming back from Melbourne, it was midnight. And I caught the train back. Don't ever catch a train to Melbourne. It's a fucking long trip. But anyway, I did. And as I got off the train, I saw all these homeless people at Central Station, where literally I used to sleep at one point in my life. And I thought, this is bullshit, man. Nothing's changed. And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to... I had $70. It's all I had to my name. Yeah. I said, I'm going to spend this $70 on these people and get to know their story. And I started doing that. And I just kept backing up. And now it's grown into an org. Like I'm running this... I've got a whole lot of volunteers that work with me now. And, we hand out swags, we hand out sleeping bags, we hand out toiletries, we hand out... But the biggest thing about it, Gary, it's not about the things that we give people. Yeah. What it is about connections. I'm trying to make people understand that, show them that there's hope. That's what I'm trying to show people is I'm living proof that you can come out the other end, that today's addict could be tomorrow's advocate. And we're changing the minds, and it's three-pronged for me. It's not just about helping those on the street, it's about making Australia aware that when you walk past someone on the street and you step around them or you call them a name, that could be someone's mother, brother, sister, auntie, uncle. It's somebody, right? And but more importantly, mental health is an epidemic on the street. It's absolutely heinous. There's this misnomer that everyone on the street's a heroin addict or an alcoholic, and that's not true. I mean, there's a percentage that are, but there's also a huge percentage that are there because they closed all the institutions, as you know, back in around 2014, 15 for mental health, and just released them onto the street.
It has created the problems, and people that find themselves out of home. It's and showing that little bit of connection. You call it connection.
Connection, yeah.
But little things like that can make the world a difference.
That's right, and that's what we do now. And I've surrounded myself. One of the smartest things that I've done is I've surrounded myself with people who can do the things I cannot. I don't have the education everyone else has. What I do well is connect. I can see. And the other thing is, I always get down and sit with people, and I'll spend whatever time it is with them. And they come up and hug me. Hey, bro, I love you. It's so beautiful the way I've built these relationships. But what's happened is by the people that I've got with me now, because I've built this rapport, they instantly trust the people that I surround myself with. Yeah. And I've got an AIN. I've got a woman that's going to university, also from the cross, so another history of her own. There's a whole lot of people, that are now just incredible
Well,
people.
that lived experience, what's it called? And how can people...
So it's called the Leg Up Project.
Yeah, okay.
And so you can...
How can people follow it or see what
Well,
you're
I
doing?
actually have a Facebook page called the Leg Up Project on
Yep.
Facebook, or you can follow on my socials. We're about to create a web page, so we'll have a web page as well soon. I've got a podcast, as you know, called Sin to the Cross on YouTube that I've just started. Because one of the problems is all the money from my book has been how I've financed us up to now. So what I'm trying to do is trying to make a way where I'm able to fund it for not me doing it, you know. So I've created a YouTube page so that if I can monetize it, I can use that to do what I do on the streets. Because I give out, so last 2 Christmases in a row, I gave out 1,800 worth of gift cards the year before last, and last year I gave out 2,800. I'm dressing as the Grinch this year, and on Christmas Day and Christmas Eve. On Christmas Eve I go with the church. They give out presents, and then on Christmas Day what I do is I ask Australia, just send me a Christmas card, write a beautiful little message in it, and just stick a $10 gift card inside, and I'll hand that out on the street. And I go live, so people get to literally watch me do it.
Good on you.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Let's give the book a promo. Pass over here. I'll hold up to the camera. Where can people get the book?
So
What's
there's
it called?
several ways. It's called Predator's Paradise. So most people message me. They want to get it directly from me. But you can get it on Amazon, Kindle, Booktopia, all the places. But now it's on all 24 platforms of audio. I've actually had Channel 7 do it for me and make it. The only one it's not out on is Audible. But it will be in the next week. It's just that the picture, they didn't accept my picture. So we had to put a different picture there for the actual book. And we've now called it King's Cross, A Predator's Paradise for Audible.
Okay, well, it's you've heard just a snippet of Glen's story today, and the book goes into a lot more detail, and there's so much. I say fascinating, and I'm not sure if that's the right word. It's just really, if you want to understand someone's life that didn't start off the right way, but you've come through it, it's an inspiration.
Yeah, I have come out the other end, and one of the main reasons, like I said, I don't talk about my family, but that is the catalyst. The main reason for me is I don't want to see history repeat, and it was repeating. I'm telling you, that's where it was going. And but after rehab, you know, one of the best things rehab did for me was it made me realise that I didn't know shit. You know, I thought I knew a lot. Like everything I knew was wrong, and that's pretty much what I had to start from scratch in rehab and start to learn about owning my shit. You know, start to own my behaviour and start to change myself from the core, and I've done that. But the biggest catalyst for me was understanding the undercurrent to my addiction was trauma. And once I started to realise I've actually got PTSD, I have ADHD and all the other fucking letters of the alphabet probably.
We just keep adding to them.
Just keep adding to them. But, you know, the main one being PTSD. I don't think my trauma will ever fully go away, but I have better tools now to manage it.
And that's the thing. It's not going to go away. It's not just, that's all in the past. It's always there, but you've got the tools.
Yeah.
And I would imagine the work that you're doing, and, it would be bringing a good, random act of kindness, which you're doing frequently. It's good for the soul, isn't it?
Absolutely. And the following that I have on social media, it's not just there. Like so many people reach out to me and share with me, you know, their suffering. I get so many mums and dads reach out about their child, their, you know, their parent, whatever it is, you know. Like, I'm going to share one last story with you because this is really one that I really touched my soul. I was walking into a post office and a woman come out with 2 little kids and she said, "Oh, are you Glenn off TikTok?" I said, "Yes, I am." She goes, "Can I please give you a hug?" And then she started hugging me and she was almost sobbing. And I was like, it was a little bit creepy at first. I'm like, what's going on here? And then she lets me go and she goes, 4 weeks ago, my husband is an alcoholic, had a violent throwing stuff all over the house. He hits me all the time, so we split and left him. But before we left, my daughter grabbed one of your videos, pressed play and put it in front of him and said, "Watch that," then walked out the door. He rang her up about 2 weeks later and confessed to his own history.
Right, okay.
He's now, I think it's 7 months, nearly 8 months sober in a rehab.
There's a lot to people have got to own it, haven't they? That's a starting point. That's right. And that example you just provided there, like, wow, you're making a difference.
Yeah, and
making a difference. That must feel good.
It does feel good, you know. Like I was going to say I was a part of the problem. I was the fucking problem. I'm telling you, I was the problem. And you know, and now I want to be a part of the solution. And I know that's cliche, but it's legit what I want to do. I want to use whatever time I've got left on this earth to. I feel like my whole life, Gary, has been gives me the experience to do what I do. You know, that's the one good thing that's come from all that trauma is that I'm able to empathise, recognise what someone else is going through, I'm able to step back, and instead of seeing the facade of someone, I see the heart of someone.
Yeah.
You know, and that makes me able to connect on a level a lot of people can't.
And the courage to talk out like you've talked out about, because that's why the things that happened to you were allowed to happen, because people didn't talk about it.
That's right.
Yeah,
remove the stigma.
It's powerful stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I am glad we've got you on Eye Catch Killers, and you've got a lot of people that will keep hitting me over the head with it, going, "You got to get him on."
Yeah, yeah.
But it's great, and sitting down and chatting with you, and just full credit to you, mate.
I appreciate that.
I seriously say this. I was inspired by the way you've got through all the shit that was thrown at you. And you've come out the other side, and you're doing some really good work. And you've made me reflect on, what's said when you walk past people laying on the road, the people that haven't got a home for the time being. And
kindness is free, Gary. It takes a minute to stop and say, "Hey, mate, my name's Gary. How are you doing? Could I buy you a coffee?" And the coffee's tokenism. It's the actual connection. Just saying, "I see you, bro." Because. I know when I was on the street, people used to walk past me. I felt like I was invisible, or if I wasn't invisible, people would say the most heinous and horrible things to me. Go home to your mother, and they didn't realise that wasn't an option for me. I didn't have that option. Yeah. And we don't know what someone's going through until we know. Yeah. Yeah.
No, good way to finish. All the best for the future, and let's stay in touch.
Absolutely.
Cheers.
Absolutely. Thanks, Gary.